Okay. Let me admit all. Hi, everyone. Good morning. As everyone is trickling in, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. My name is Abigail Littleton, and I am the Assistant Director of Client Experience here at the Leadership Institute. And we welcome you to our third Disruptive Leadership webinar of the year. And I would like to extend a special shout out to the YPs of the Chattahoochee Valley. We appreciate this collaboration and look forward to your engagement and insights during the webinar. Over our time together, we hope to make this webinar interactive, so we will be using the chat feature, and I will pause the speaker throughout for your comments and questions to be addressed. Additionally, you can submit your questions to me directly by sending me a direct chat. And today's session will be led by Christina Martin. Christina is a certified coach, trainer, and motivational speaker who specializes in helping individuals and leaders bridge the gap between their goals and actions. She is known for creating reflective, empathetic learning experiences that encourage growth and accountability. Christina holds multiple certifications, including coaching and Lean Six Sigma Green Belt, and is currently pursuing a degree in industrial organizational psychology and organizational leadership. So let's welcome Christina to the chat.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Abigail. I appreciate you for introducing me. All right, let me share my screen. Hello, Taylor, dear. How are you? Welcome. I see so many amazing people in here, so thank y'all for showing up today. All right, Abigail, can you see me?
Yep.
All right. Abigail has done a wonderful job of introducing me, so you already know who I am. I am the proud owner of Christina Coaches, and I'm honored to be here today as a leadership consultant with the Leadership Institute to bring you the neuroscience of leadership, rewiring the brain for influence. So before I dive into our content, I want to bring this to life by sharing 3 real moments from leaders that I've worked with recently. My first leader set up a meeting with her team where the goal was to get their feedback on how to improve their team dynamics. Within about the first 3 minutes, she told me that she had completely taken over the conversation. She found herself not only talking, but explaining, then over-explaining, and filling every single bit of silence. Halfway through, she said she found herself thinking, why am I still talking right now? She walked out of that meeting frustrated, not because she didn't know what to say, but because she could not stop herself from saying too much. And here's the thing, as a result of how that conversation went, nothing changed for the team. There was no buy-in, no shift in their behavior, because her brain chose influence. Well, it chose control over influence. My next client told me about a meeting that he sat in. This was huge. There was a big decision on the table. Executive leadership was in the room, but that was no problem because he was prepared. He had the insight that he wanted to share, and he said, I know exactly what I'm going to say. But then his brain did what a lot of our brains like to do. It started to ask him questions like, what if this is wrong? What if they shut down my idea? What if I sound stupid? So what did he do? He stayed quiet. And within a few moments, like fate loves to do, someone magically said the same idea that he had. And then the room ran with it. He said he walked out of that meeting thinking, I had it. This was my idea. Why didn't I speak up? In that moment, his brain chose safety over influence. And then there's my last leader who was providing updates on a project that he was working on when one of his team members raised their hand and pushed back on something that he said. He said before he could even think about it, he felt irritated and he responded quickly and unfortunately sharper than he meant to. The conversation ended up shifting immediately. They became defensive, there was tension, and later he found himself thinking, that is not even how I wanted to handle that. But in the moment, it just happened. In that moment, his brain chose self-protection over leadership. So what happened in these situations, what we see here is that leaders were reacting instead of responding. They were avoiding instead of influencing, or they were defaulting to patterns that don't serve them, especially when they're under pressure. So here's what I want all of you to keep in mind as we move through the training for today. Every decision that you make, every reaction you have, and every ounce of influence that you carry is being filtered through your brain in real time. Now, that is not a lack of skill. That is your brain doing exactly what it is wired to do. So today is all about learning some practical tools that's going to help you to work with your brain instead of against it so that you can lead with more confidence and influence, especially when it matters to you. So let's start by talking about influence. Influence is defined as the ability to shape thoughts, behaviors, or decisions without force. I want to read that one more time. Influence is designed as the ability to shape thoughts, behaviors, or decisions without force. So this is not about controlling people. It's not about manipulating them. It's not even about being perfect with every word you say or in every single interaction you have with someone else. This is simply going to be about how you show up in moments that matter. So here's what I want you to tell me in the chat. How would you rate your comfort level with influence at work on a scale of 1 to 5? 1 being I avoid it whenever possible, don't bring it my way. 5 being I feel confident influencing in most situations at work. Tell me in the chat, how confident are you when it comes to influencing at work? Ooh, Rebecca says 5. Avina says 3. Tab says 5. Good morning, Tab. I like these scores. Taylor says 6. Okay, Taylor. Caroline says 3. Mr. Kid says, I feel very confident 5. Okay, I like these high scores. That's a good thing. For anyone who might not be telling the truth or found themselves at a 3 or below, I've got just the thing. We're going to talk about that. And that midway gap is where we see our brains usually starting to get in the way. Now, for everyone who is not on this call, these would be the people I would say struggle with influence because it is not any of you. So let's take a look at why some other people might struggle with this. First up, very common one, the fear of judgment. Your brain is constantly scanning, thinking, what will people think about me? What are they going to say about this? How will I be viewed? So instead of speaking up and placing ourselves in the spotlight, we might make the decision to play it safe, and then we end up losing the opportunity to influence. Some leaders find influence uncomfortable, right? To them, it may come across as conflict. And so they associate that with tension or with pushback. So their brains are like, we're not going to do this. We're going to avoid it altogether. Even when they need to say something, it's important that it's addressed. There's no way they're going to do it. Then next up, there are my overthinkers. I'm quite sure that couldn't be anybody on this call, but maybe a few, right? Some leaders suffer with the paralysis by analysis. And then we start to analyze everything. And we're thinking, what are they going to say? How should I say what I need to say? What's going to happen? What will be their response? And then by the time it is the moment to go, the moment's already gone. We've missed it. Or you might struggle with the lack of clarity, right? If your message is not clear, if you're not clear on the outcome that you're wanting to receive from this moment, your brain will hesitate. And that hesitation will instantly weaken our influence. And lastly, there are those habitual patterns that get in the way, right? Our brain is going to default to what it knows. So maybe what your brain does is I'm going to stay quiet in the moment. You might overtalk like my other leader, or you're going to avoid the situation altogether. And unless we interrupt that pattern, we're simply going to keep repeating it over and over and over again. This is what I want you to tell me in the chat. When it comes to influencing other people at work, for those of you who struggle, maybe from time to time, which one of these seems to get in your way the most? Is it the fear of judgment? Is it being uncomfortable with conflict? Are you overthinking? Are you concerned about a lack of clarity? Or is it habitual patterns? I'm constantly doing what I'm used to doing, and I pretty much stick to that. Anytime that you have struggled either with influence in the past or currently, what gets in your way? All right, Taylor says overthinking. Absolutely. I'm going to see what other answers we get. Abigail, I'm going to ask you, if and when you struggle with influence, which one of these do you struggle with the most?
I would say overthinking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tab just said lack of clarity. Rebecca, habitual patterns. Caroline, discomfort with conflict. Mr. Kidd, habitual patterns. Very good. Thank y'all for sharing. All right. So let's think back to the three leaders I talked to y'all about earlier. Mrs. says too much, Mr. doesn't say enough, and Mr. bites your head off. And we're going to take a look at the brain at work in those situations. So imagine you're in a meeting and now it is your turn to push back on something. And you need to tell somebody, this is not a good idea. It's not going to work. We tried this 3 years ago. It failed. Okay. And right before you speak up, something shifts. Your brain starts scanning the situation, the interaction to say, is this safe? What if they disagree? What if I'm wrong? That is step one. Your brain is looking for danger. And the part of your brain that is scanning for the threat is called your amygdala. This is our brain's threat alarm system. So your amygdala is what is going to initiate the fight or flight response. So when it detects danger or fear or some type of high emotion, what happens? Well, it can hijack your brain. Not only will it hijack your brain temporarily, it will also take over your bodily functions before your rational brain even has a chance to step in. Now, here's the problem. Your brain does not know the difference between a real danger or threat, that could harm our lives, and a social threat. So it's going to react in the same way. And in that moment, your thinking brain or your prefrontal cortex starts to go offline, which means I don't have access to some really important things. Your prefrontal cortex is responsible for the things that make you intentional instead of being reactive. So my decision-making skills, my self-control, your emotional regulation, your problem solving, your social awareness, those things temporarily go offline while your amygdala hijacks you. So now you're not choosing your response anymore. You are simply defaulting to your instincts, to your habits, and some of our habits are not great, or we are defaulting to whatever our brain says in the moment is the safest thing we could do. And that could look like going silent and shutting down, talking too much, biting someone's head off, or just reacting in a way that we don't intend to. So when you encounter the amygdala hijack at work, what exactly would this look like? Let me show you. It could be, maybe you are snapping in a meeting. Someone challenges an idea, ask a question that kind of rubs you the wrong way. And before you can even think about it, I'm cutting them off. I'm getting defensive. That is your amygdala hijacking the moment. Or if you find yourself shutting down, right? I'm supposed to be giving feedback. I've got something important to say. And my brain is telling me, hey, just don't say this right now. And you tell this is not the right time. That is your brain avoiding discomfort. That is the flight response. If you find yourself being an over explainer, somebody asks you a simple question, and instead you go into a long, drawn out explanation just to justify your thinking. And then you will find yourself talking more and more, just trying to prove your point. That is your brain trying to protect you. If you're the person who's avoiding those tough conversations, I know I need to address this with somebody on the team, but I just keep pushing it off. Or if you have the conversation, you find yourself softening the message, leaving parts out, or you just avoid it altogether. That is your brain choosing safety over leadership. If you happen to be one of those people who sends emails that you later regret, somebody said something, they have pissed me off, and I fire back quickly. And then later I read that email and I'm like, girl, what was I thinking? I should not have sent that. That reaction that you had quickly before you had a chance to think, that's a hijack. Or if you're someone who freezes under pressure, who has not done this, you're in a meeting and somebody puts you on the spot and your mind goes blank. You know the answer, you're prepared for this, but now you just can't access that information. That is your thinking brain actually going offline. So here's what I want you to tell me in the chat. Which one of these amygdala hijack moments do you experience most often? Is it potentially snapping in a meeting? Are you someone who shuts down? Do you over explain? Are you avoiding the tough conversations altogether? Are you the email sender? Or are you the one who is freezing under pressure. Mind goes blank and I cannot think of the next thing to say. Tab shutting down. Ooh, those came through fast. Over explaining, Taylor over explaining, Avina shutting down. Rebecca says she is over explaining. Caroline, you're freezing under pressure. And Sarah, you said you are shutting down. Understood. So I'm going to share a quick personal story of something that happened to me the other day. And I had my own hijack moment. And I have been talking about this ever since because I was like, oh, I'm literally about to teach this class and it just happened to me. So my sister and I were having a conversation about something that we need to work on together. I don't really understand how the process works, but we're doing it together. It is not dangerous. Nothing bad can happen from it. There's just some uncertainty as far as what the situation looks like. So she's telling me she's made the first step in the situation to get us started. And the next thing I know, my heart starts racing, my stomach drops, and I immediately started to cry. And she's like, are you okay? And I was sitting there thinking, what is happening? And so I just took a couple of deep breaths and I slowed down and I kept saying to her, this is not logical. I just don't understand why I'm so upset. I just don't understand why I got so upset in that moment. That was an amygdala hijack. My brain saw uncertainty. I was afraid in that moment. And immediately it took over my thinking brain and took over my bodily functions. I'm crying, I'm sweating. And once I calmed down, I was like, hey, wait a minute. I'm safe. This is okay. I'm actually not in danger. I will not die and we'll be fine. So we've been laughing about it for the past 2 days, but literally my amygdala hijack moment. So here is what we're going to do. I want you to think about this. If the things that we just talked about, those hijack moments are happening to you automatically, then that means this is not about you trying harder to influence or getting better at it in the moment. This is about learning how to interrupt those brain patterns so that you can get your thinking brain back online and back in control. So I've got a couple of tools that I'm going to teach you that are designed to help you break those patterns so that we can think clearly, so that we know how to respond. So the first one, this is one of the most important and one of my most favorite, is the pause and reframe method. This is what we're going to use for that amygdala hijack. So what's happening in our brain when we need to use the pause and reframe? The amygdala is reacting to a perceived threat. That could be criticism, it could be conflict, it could be stress. When you pause in the moment, you are giving your thinking brain or your prefrontal cortex a chance to step in so that you don't react before you have a chance to actually think through what's the best way for me to respond. It's simply a way for you to slow down, to let your thinking brain come back online. This is a powerful tool for people pleasers because so often people pleasing shows up as freeze. There's another response that they call tend and befriend. So when your body senses a threat, whether it is real or imagined, like in my situation, and it tries to diffuse that situation by either avoiding the conflict, by seeking approval for the other person, or seeking safety and compliance. When we pause as people pleasers, that interrupts that automatic survival response and creates the space for you to make a conscious choice about, do I actually want to do this or no? So instead of defaulting to saying yes so that you can avoid discomfort, you actually get to assess whether the request the person has made of you aligns with your boundaries, if it aligns with your values or even your capacity. This is important. Over time, this is going to help to rewire your nervous system so that you can better tolerate saying no to someone without being triggered by the same stress reaction over and over and over again. And this is going to give you a chance to make better decisions about how you react moving forward, which is extremely important. So how do we do it? First up, I want you to notice when you feel a strong emotional reaction. Then you have to pause. Do not speak for at least 3 to 5 seconds. So hold on. I'm going to set a timer and I'm going to let you feel how long 5 seconds is. Ready, set, go. Not long at all, but it kind of felt like an eternity at the same time. This is how long we need to be quiet to allow our thinking brains a chance to come back online. In that moment, we need to be asking ourselves, what outcome do I want here? so that you can reframe your response and move from being reactive in this situation to being constructive. So I want to give you some examples. Let's say that a team member pushed back, and instead of you snapping and biting their head off, we are going to pause and reframe our response. So I'm going to pause for 3 to 5 seconds at least. And then instead of saying what I want to say, I am instead going to say, help me to understand your perspective. Walk me through what got in the way here. Let's take a look at what's working and where we need to adjust things. Or we're just going to be plain and simple. We're going to ask for what we need. Please give me a second to think about how I want to respond. Something else that you could do is say, you know what, I really would love some time to think about this. Can we come back to this after lunch? I just want to sit on this for a minute. Ask for what you need. I cannot tell you how many situations I was in early in my career where I didn't know that I even had the right to ask for a break in high emotions, high stakes situations. And I reacted in ways that I now look back on and regret. All right. So ask for what you need. So by pausing, you prevent the amygdala from hijacking you and you create a space for yourself where now I can make rational, constructive decisions about how to move forward in my responses. Here's the other thing that is super important. Your calm, strategic response actually helps to reduce the stress signals in the other person's brain, and it makes them more receptive to what you are saying. This is the foundation for everything, because if you don't control this, you do not control anything else. I use this with my clients all the time, especially in high stress situations. Something happens, someone pushes back, and your brain immediately goes into defense mode. Pause, because this is where your power is. That's when your thinking brain comes back online, and we can move away from the instant gratification in the moment to long-term strategic thinking. I had a very great mentor at AFLAC who used to always say to me, your career is bigger than this moment. Well, it's not going to be if you don't allow your thinking brain to come back online to help you make good decisions about how to move forward. Instead of reacting, we want to choose our response. That is influence. So here's what I want you to do. Think about a recent moment where you reacted quickly. Tell me in the chat, if you would have paused, how might it have changed that situation? Maybe you wouldn't have responded. Maybe I would have responded better. Maybe I would have asked for a break. But think about a recent moment where you reacted too quickly. What might a pause have gained for you? How could that have helped you out?
While those are coming in, I would say for me, definitely providing more insight and details. I think when I don't pause, I might leave important notes out that would have made the conversation more meaningful.
Great answer. That's a really great answer. I had a conversation recently where if I would have paused in that situation, I would not have responded. I would have just taken the moment to listen fully and hold my response for much longer and keep that to myself. All right. Do we have any responses in the chat? Don't see any yet. All right. I'll come back if you all answer. That might have been a difficult one. Here we go. We're going to move on to the next tool, and I'm excited about this one. There we go. Curiosity questions. This is an engagement and brain activation tool. So what's happening in our brain when you do this? When you ask questions, it activates the thinking brain in the other person. It's going to increase their attention, and it is going to prime them to solve problems for themselves. So now they're not being told, they are actually thinking. And when people think for themselves, they are much more likely to engage, contribute, and follow through. And that is where the real buy-in starts. That's what we want, and that's the important side of influence for us. How do we do it? Number one, we are going to ask open-ended, non-judgmental questions, and I'm going to give you some examples in a minute. We're also going to encourage reflection before giving answers, right? Encourage them to think back over the situation. And then use questions to guide toward a solution, not to tell them what to do. So I was recently talking to a friend of mine whose adult son was having some issues, and he had come up with a complete plan of how to solve the problem. And so I said to him, I said, I'm just going to give you a piece of advice. Don't give him the plan. And he was like, well, then what am I supposed to do? I was like, you can give him the idea of the plan and then ask him, hey, is this a good idea? If your son says yes, say, how would you make it work? How else is he ever supposed to build his critical thinking skills if you are constantly handing him the solution to every problem? And he's like, but what if his ideas are stupid? I was like, then you step in and you say, you know what? It's a great idea, but actually, that might not work. And let me tell you why. And then let him reformulate and adjust his plan. Don't just hand him every single solution. Okay. The same thing is true for our team members and our employees. So here are some examples. I'm having a conversation and I might say to a team member, what's something in your work right now that feels stuck? And what do you think that you could do to move it forward? Let them say that. And then if it turns out that they need your help, they'll say, well, I also need for you to step in and help with XYZ. Okay. If you had the resources or support that you needed, what would you try differently? When you look at your goals for the next month, what's the biggest challenge that you anticipate and what ideas do you have for tackling it? When and where you need to, then we can step in to provide insight for our own perspectives. But outside of that, we want to empower our teammates to think this through. Next one, when you look, oh, did I give that one already? I did. I read ahead on that one. I'm sorry. So why does this work? When people generate their own answers, their brains are more engaged and more committed, which is what we want. Ownership is going to create motivation and influence without you even needing authority. I don't even have to be in a leadership position for this to work. Most people overtalk when they are trying to influence, and that is the fastest way to lose people. Your brain actually loves to solve problems. So when you ask questions, you activate their thinking and their critical thinking skills. Now, the other person is engaged, they have ownership. I tell my clients all the time, if you want to influence people, don't worry about being the smartest person in the room. Start by being the most curious. That's the way to start. So here's what I want you to think about for yourself. What's one question that you could ask your team to get them thinking instead of waiting for answers? What is one question that I could ask my team that would get them thinking instead of waiting for answers and solutions from me? My challenge for you, your homework, is to ask that question. It's Thursday. I'll let you ask it next week. All right. I'll give you the weekend to consider it. But one more time, I want you to think about one question that you could ask your team that would get them thinking for themselves using that critical thinking machine in their brain instead of waiting on the answers and solutions from you. All right, next up, and this is a good one, the reward circuit activation. This is our dopamine tool. So what's happening in our brain with this? Your brain responds to reward signals by releasing dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that drives motivation, focus, and pleasure. So as leaders, when you celebrate progress, even very tiny wins, dopamine reinforces positive behavior, making it more likely that the team member will repeat the action. Essentially, the brain learns very quickly, this thing I just did, it feels good and it pays off. I should do it again. So if they're doing a report on time, they're meeting the deadline, and the quality is great, we need to acknowledge the behavior. How do we do it? First, recognize small wins publicly or privately. Link that recognition to a behavior that you want them to repeat. You're going to see in just a moment when I give you examples of how to do this, they are specific examples. No more saying, good job yesterday. That does not cut it. You have to tell them what they did a good job at. And you're going to encourage repeated action with clear next steps. You're going to tell Abigail, you did a great job on that report. Not only did you get it done on time, all of the metrics were correct. I'm looking forward to that. And matter of fact, I'm hoping you can do that again next week. I love it. Great job. Okay. The more you connect positive feedback to specific actions, the stronger the brain's reward loop becomes, making motivation and habit formation that much easier. So again, the more that you give that positive feedback, it makes it easier for their brains to make this a habit over and over and over again, and they want to complete the actions again. So examples of what it would sound like when we do this. Great job noticing that bottleneck. Your attention to detail keeps our projects on track. Keep it up. Okay, I want you to continue the action. Noticed how you stepped up to support the team in a crunch? Your initiative makes a real difference. Let's build on that approach next week. I want you to keep doing it. Okay. You handled that client challenge really well. Your solution focused mindset keeps our team moving. Keep sharing those ideas. I want you to keep doing it. Always give action-based recognition. We can give a small, meaningful token. We can write handwritten notes. Maybe you give a $5 coffee gift card. Maybe you give a shout out in a meeting. Directly tie it to the behavior that you want to see again. I will never forget, I had a leader a couple of years ago tell me, I do not get paid to be a cheerleader. Well, first of all, I love that comment. I still talk about that to this day. It was delicious. I ate it up for breakfast. Here's what I'll tell you. If that is your mindset, you are setting yourself up for failure as a leader. Okay. This is not being a cheerleader. This is leadership. This is how you get people to repeat the behaviors that you want to see. And I love when leaders tell me this is their job. This is what they get paid to do. That is correct. Would you like them to keep doing it at this level of excellence? If so, recognize it. That does not mean we're giving out $10,000 bonuses because we may not have the money for that. But can you give a $5 coffee gift card? Can you give them a shout out in a team meeting? I have a lot of leaders where in their leadership meetings, they acknowledge team members who have done a great job for that week. Even when the team members are not in the room, they're still saying their names and acknowledging their efforts and then going back and saying, this morning, I shared your name in executive team leading and the great job that you did on the report last week, Abigail. Okay. If you want them to continue a good job, you need to say it and be specific about it. We just did the Leadership Institute, a class for DeKalb County on creating a culture of recognition and engagement. And this is one of the things that we talked about in great detail. I mean, I gave the team, the leaders, a huge list of all the things they could do to continue the excellent work and work quality they wanted to see from their team members with simple, small, meaningful tokens and acknowledgments. All right. So why does this work? The brain releases dopamine when we are acknowledged, and it increases motivation, and it makes the behavior easier to repeat. It is more likely they will repeat it over and over again just from the compliment, just from the praise. And when you consistently recognize the right behaviors, you're not just motivating the team, you are actually rewiring your own brain for influence. Because every acknowledgement that you give will strengthen your own neural pathways so that now it's easier for you to notice behaviors, to value them, and amplify positive action. That's going to make it easier for you as a leader to shape culture and drive performance. If that's not influence, I don't know what is. So, in other words, I want you to think of like this. Dopamine isn't just a reward for the team. It is also a tool for you to become a more impactful leader. So everyone's brains are affected in a positive way from this. So here's what I want you to think about. What's a behavior that you want more of on your team that you are not currently recognizing? This will also be your homework assignment. I want you to think about a behavior that you want more of from your team that you are either not currently recognizing at all or you are not recognizing enough. I'll say it one more time to give you all a chance to either take a picture or to write it down. You may start on Monday. What's a behavior that you want more of on your team that you are not currently recognizing or you are not recognizing enough? Take the weekend to also think of how you will recognize these behaviors, right? Small tokens, meaningful praise, specific praise. All right. Next up, this one's interesting. We're going to talk about mirroring and energy matching. This is our social brain tool, okay? What's happening in our brains when we do this? Your brain has a special cell that's called a mirror neuron that makes you naturally copy what you see and hear from someone else. So you could end up copying their gestures, their tone, or their energy. This happens automatically, and it helps you to actually connect with people. So when you match someone's energy, it helps you to build trust and rapport very quickly. Then when we shift and start to lead with our own energy, this is where influence enters the room because now I can guide their behavior. Why does it matter? Mirroring in a subtle way creates connection and influence without you ever having to say a word. It is how your brain and the other person's brains sync up. So let's talk about how to do it. The first thing I want you to do when we are mirroring, I want you to observe carefully. Notice the person's tone, their posture, their gestures, even their speaking pace. Then we are going to match it subtly. We are not going to be creeps. We're not going to be weird. Okay. So we're just going to copy very small aspects of their behavior without overdoing it. Here's an example. If I'm talking to Abigail and she leans forward, I will lean slightly forward. If Abigail is talking and she's speaking slowly and softly, I will lower my pace and I will soften my tone. This is going to make Abigail feel understood and create a natural sense of connection. A lot of you are already doing this naturally anyway, okay? Then I am going to lead intentionally. Now it is time for me to put my energy out there so she'll come follow it. So once rapport is established, I am gently going to guide the conversation by shifting my energy and body language toward the state I want Abigail to match. So if Abigail is frustrated, she's upset about something, I want her to shift to being calm or focused. That is then the energy that I will put out. If I want her to be enthusiastic or excited about an idea, that is the energy I put out to get her to match me. Now, people ask me all the time, how do I know that the rapport has been established with Abigail and I can start doing this? When she seems relaxed, she seems open and engaged, when the conversation starts to flow naturally without feeling awkward, there's no resistance from her. Now is the time for me to step in to get her to match my energy. So I want you to think of it like this. Here are some examples. Frustrated person, I need to get them to calm and solution focused. I'm going to mirror calm energy slowly and then guide them towards that. Think about dealing with someone who was upset and angry. Have you ever had a conversation with someone? You remained calm, and then slowly their temperature came down, down, down. And by the end of it, they're saying, I'm sorry, I didn't drink coffee this morning. Okay. Or I was having a bad day. You guys are laughing about it and you've moved past the situation. That was mirroring, energy matching, and then bringing them to your state. So you got an excited colleague. I want them to match enthusiasm. If they're talking quickly and smiling, I'm going to nod along, speak slightly faster, and then gently bring the focus to the key points that I want without killing the energy for the conversation. Tav, I just saw your response. Let me ask you this question. When you say matching energy in emails, are we matching positive energy and then leading? We're not matching negative, right? We're trying to still bring them to where you are. It's going to work the same there. I am gently going to guide and lead the tone in that email and show them the state that I want them to match me at. I will not match their energy. They will match mine. Let me know if you have additional questions about that, Tab. That's a really great question. All right, if I have a reserved client and I want them to match a measured pace, so if someone's speaking softly or slowly, I'm going to lower my volume. I'm going to slow down my speech and then gradually introduce more energy to energize the conversation. If I've got a stressed team member, I'm going to mirror their tense posture subtly. I'm going to lean slightly forward. I'm going to breathe deeply. And then I'm going to shift to more relaxed gestures and steady the tone to help settle them. I use this all the time. It's really easy to do, and it actually happens very quickly where the person will take hold and then match your energy. Now, it doesn't always work. Sometimes people are just determined to be as angry as they're going to be. You keep your energy where it needs to be and just wait for them to take hold. Why does it work? Mirroring reduces defensiveness in other people because it primes their brain to follow your lead, making them more open to collaboration. Again, here comes the influence. Your energy is the invitation. It is not a command, and it doesn't need to be. You are going to set the tone. You are going to embody the state, and the other person's brain will naturally align. All we have to do is lead with presence and authenticity. Do not be super fake in the moment and overdo it, because you actually will send off warning signs from their brain that nope, no, and no. Okay. So when you consciously mirror and match someone's energy, when you match their posture, their tone, and their pace, you are speaking directly to their nervous system. And this is going to help to build instant rapport, trust, and openness, because their brain is now unconsciously perceiving you as safe. Their brain is saying, I am aligned with Abigail. I'm going to listen. The more attuned you become to them, the more influence that you can naturally wield in that situation. People are far more likely to listen, to collaborate, and to follow someone who they feel like gets them. Mastering this is neuroscience in action. Leveraging your connection to guide behavior, to co-create outcomes, and to move people towards shared goals is what we want. Use mirroring and matching more often. Here's what I want you to think about for next week. Who here is willing to try mirroring? Tell me in the chat. Think about this. Is there someone on the team that you could try this out with? If you're interested in trying mirroring starting next week, say yes. If your answer is no, say nope. Not for me. Oh, I see a lot of yeses. Hello, Mr. Taylor. I see you. I love that. Awesome. Good. It's such a great tool to use. Hey, honey. All right. Next up, this is important because there's somebody on this call who's like, Christina, all of this sounds really great, but I just get afraid. The minute I have to be in the spotlight, I'm the one talking. It's all on me. I'm the one who needs to put the energy out in the room for other people to match. No thanks. Okay. First of all, that is normal. It's natural because your brain naturally wants to avoid what it sees as risk or feeling judged. So when we are worried about conflict, when you are worried about rejection or what others think, our amygdala is going to kick in, and it's either going to make us freeze or we're going to hold back. Knowing this now gives you a chance to say, I need to focus on trying to tap back into my thinking brain so that I can step up, I can speak up, and I can influence even when it feels uncomfortable. So how do we do this? I want you to notice the physical signs of fear. Maybe your chest tightens up, your heart's racing, you might sweat, or you might want to run away. We're going to take a slow breath, acknowledge the fact that we feel the fear. My brain thinks this is risky, but I can handle it. The other day I went into a training, an amygdala hijack happened. I have been with this audience 3 times. They're a lot of fun. We always have a great time, but my heart was racing. My chest had tightened up, and I literally was walking around the room setting up, and I said, I'm safe. I've been here before. This is going to be a lot of fun, and we can do this. And so one of the ladies heard me, and she's like, oh, I heard you in here hyping yourself up. I was actually calming myself down from the amygdala hijack that was taking over, right? We're going to break the action into micro steps. Start small by stating one clear idea in a meeting or just asking one question. I want you to practice speaking up in low stakes situations because this is going to strengthen your courage pathways. So let's just speak up when everything isn't on the table, right? And just practice more and more and more. The more you do it, the more your brain will allow you to do it comfortably. So an example, you're in a meeting, you've got an important idea and your brain says, better not speak up. Instead, take a deep breath, acknowledge the fear, and say to the group, I have a thought that might help us here. Okay, this is how we're able to use our influence in the moment and help override the fear response that can hold us back. So why it matters and why this works for us. By naming the fear, we're going to take a very small step to signal to the brain that we are safe and reduce the amygdala's threat response. Your thinking brain is then able to take charge again, which is what we want, for us to have confident action afterwards. Over time, speaking up becomes easier and it feels more natural. The fear response is your brain trying to protect you from some sort of risk. Here's the problem. You cannot influence other people if you will not show up. So we are not going to wait for confidence. You're going to take small actions anyway. And every time you do that, you rewire your brain for courage. Tell me this in the chat. What situations tend to trigger stress or defensiveness in you as a leader? Is it giving difficult feedback? Is it handling conflict between team members? Maybe presenting a new idea, could be to senior leadership or executive leadership, or when you receive unexpected criticism. Which one of these things triggers either stress in you or defensiveness on your part? Is it giving difficult feedback? Is it handling conflict, presenting a new idea, or receiving unexpected criticism? All right, let me see. James Taylor says, giving difficult feedback, criticism, absolutely. Caroline says, unexpected criticism, that one can be difficult. Ms. Jackson says, conflict. All right, last one, and then I'm gonna open the floor up for questions. Oh, Mr. Kidd said that one's difficult. Interesting. All right, let's talk about my favorite one, which is small habit rewiring. This is where we're actually going to be able to put something into play. So what's happening with our brain when it comes to this? Your brain is constantly changing. That's a very simple way of defining neuroplasticity. Every time you repeat a behavior, you strengthen the neural pathways that allow you to support that. So over time, small, consistent actions rewire your brain and turn new behaviors into habits. I just taught this class recently for a group of teenagers, and it was really interesting. And one of the things I shared with them is when you decide that you want to change a behavior or create a new habit, it is not as simple as saying, I'm going to do this new thing. I'm going to pause and reframe. The brain does not work that way. You actually have to do it consistently for the brain to say, oh, this might be okay. Again and again and again. Consistency is your best friend. Saying it is not enough. Okay, so why does this matter for leaders? Tiny daily actions, like if you're giving quick recognition, if you're pausing before you react, if you're deciding I'm going to ask the curious questions, these small things can gradually change how you show up as a leader. Even small wins create momentum. The more you practice, the more natural it will become, and your brain will allow you to do it much faster and much easier with less resistance. How do we do it? I want you to pick a leadership behavior to change. Maybe I'm going to ask the curious questions. I'm going to try to override my fear response. You're going to pause and reframe, and then you're going to practice it consistently, even in very small doses, just tiny every single day, to get the brain to understand this is not dangerous because it's new. I can actually do this, right? And then reflect on the impact weekly and adjust your plan as you so see fit. So what's an example of that? Commit to starting every team meeting with a genuine acknowledgement of a team member. After 30 days, your team's engagement will increase and your brain wires you to naturally start the meeting this way. Also remember, as we start to do these tools and methods to help us out with influence and your brain sees the payoff, dopamine will kick in for you as well, okay? So here's what I want you to keep in mind. Repetition will strengthen your neural pathways, turning this intentional action into an automatic habit. Over time, your brain is going to learn this is just the default behavior I do. I'm going to pause whenever I'm in a high stress situation or a high stakes moment so that I can allow my thinking brain to come back online because my career is bigger than this moment. That will just become a natural automatic action for you. So this is where it all comes together. We don't need to change everything. We just need to change one pattern, one behavior, one response, and we're just going to repeat it. because your brain does not change through intention. It's not going to change because you say, I want it to change. It is going to change because of repetition. You repeat it over and over and over again. That's how influence for you is going to become more natural instead of feeling forced. And that's what we're looking for. So here's what I want to know for you before I open it up for questions. Which small behavior, if repeated consistently, could make the biggest difference for you and your team? Is it pausing and reframing? Is it asking the curious questions? Maybe it's going to be mirroring energy for you. Is it overriding your fear response? Tell me which small behavior, if you repeat it consistently, is going to make the biggest difference. Yes, absolutely, Rochelle. Thank you for saying that. Sounds like this works with healthier habits too. Absolutely. Which small behavior, if repeated consistently, could make the biggest difference for you and for your team? Abigail, I'm going to ask you that question.
Yeah, I was about to chime in. I would say mirroring. Not even for my team, but for my coaches.
Oh,
Like curating that safe place, it goes a long way. And I think also just having the opportunity to practice within my team as well to make it more meaningful will be amazing.
I love that. That's a really good one. And it's such a great way to connect very quickly with the people you interact with. I saw a lot of pausing. I saw mirroring in there. I'm telling pausing is my favorite. And if you don't listen to anything else, please start pausing and allowing your thinking brain to come back online. You can make better strategic decisions about how you need to respond in the moments that matter for you. Influence is not about yelling louder. It's not about trying harder. That's not what we need to do. It's about knowing your brain and theirs and using that information to actually show up instead of freezing, instead of freaking out, instead of overthinking. Pause before you react. Mirror without being creepy. Celebrate the wins. Rewire one tiny habit at a time. Use your brain's reward system to make good behavior stick. That's how real influence happens. It happens slow, smart, and on purpose. All right, we've got a few moments left, so I do want to open the door for questions and takeaways if anybody has any. You guys have been absolutely amazing. Thank you all so much for not only showing up, but participating. You guys have been really engaged, and I appreciate it. So I'm going to see if we get any questions in the chat. If there are no questions, give me a G and the number 2 and then the letter G. Good to go. And we'll close you out for the day. Thank you, Mr. Kidd. Thank you, Rochelle. Thank you, Tav. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Mr. Kidd.
While those questions might be coming in, I just want to thank everyone for coming to our webinar today. Christine, if you could show the QR code on the screen. Yeah, that'd be great. Perfect. We will make this recording of the presentation available on our YouTube channel within the next few days, and the information will be sent to you in an email that you use to register for today. And our next webinar is April 23rd. Our consultant, Brian Fitzpatrick, will be presenting on You Are Doing Too Much, Overcoming Overfunctioning. So on behalf of the Leadership Institute, thank you for your questions and your engagement. I'll see you next month, and I'll be sure to stick around until noon if anyone wants to ask any questions one-on-one with me and Christina.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for coming. And if you have questions, feel free to stay on with us. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.